Well, right now, Malaysia is charging two women with the murder in the case of Kim Jong-un's half-brother. The women face a death sentence if convicted, so this is just the beginning of all of this. They're accused of killing the North Korean leader's estranged brother with that toxic nerve agent at a Malaysian airport 2 weeks ago. This, as South Korean intelligence officials say the North Korean regime was behind the murder, and they also have other news as well. Gordon Chang is the Asia analyst and author of Nuclear Showdown: North Korea Takes on the World. And we've been following this step by step, Gordon. Another new development coming out of South Korea and the intelligence agencies there is that there was an additional assassination within North Korea of 5 top officials using anti-aircraft guns. What is that about, and what does that tell us about the regime?
Well, not only were those 5 senior officials executed, but also their boss was demoted. We learned about that at the beginning of this month. And really what this suggests is that there's instability at the top of the North Korean regime right now, because this comes in conjunction with the killing of Kim Jong-nam, which is a serious event in North Korea because this is challenging the Kim bloodline, so it's an especially heinous act. And also, when the North Koreans launched that intermediate range ballistic missile on February 12th, that is the head of the Strategic Rocket Forces wasn't on site, indicating that there is turbulence at the top of the North Korean military. So there's instability across this regime right now.
How do we take advantage of that instability?
I think it's going to be very difficult. The one thing that we might be able to do is to convince China that their support of North Korea over the decades is counterproductive for Chinese interests. And one way we can do this is to say, well, Kim Jong-nam was a Chinese asset. He was being under the protection of Beijing because they wanted to have a Kim in reserve in case they wanted to change the top of the North Korean leadership. But we got to remember, right now there is this spat between Beijing and Pyongyang. We may be able to see some leverage there, but at the end of the day, the Chinese support the North Koreans, not because the North Koreans are friendly and helpful to the Chinese. It's because the North Koreans do things that are in the long-term strategic interest of China, which is basically keeping us off balance.
Interesting. You know, I'm reflecting back on a State of the Union address that happened in 2002, because we have talked about North Korea, Gordon, we have talked about North Korea for years now. Obviously, this has been something that has plagued our affairs in North Korea, has plagued a variety of different administrations. President Bush, though, in 2002, had this to say about North Korea. I want to play a little bit of that sound for our viewers, and we'll talk about it after this.
North Korea is a regime arming with missiles and weapons of mass destruction while starving its citizens. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world. By seeking weapons of mass destruction, these regimes pose a grave and growing danger. They could provide these arms to terrorists, giving them the means to match their hatred. They could attack our allies or attempt to blackmail the United States. In any of these cases, the price of indifference would be catastrophic.
15 years ago, Gordon. It's hard to imagine that. 15 years ago, President Bush made that address and famously said the axis of evil, including North Korea, Iraq, and Iran. What's changed since then?
The only thing that's changed is that North Korea has been able to detonate nuclear devices and further perfect its long-range missiles. It's been selling both missile and nuclear weapons technology to the Iranians, and the North Koreans have links to terrorist groups such as Hamas and Hezbollah. Clearly, the North Koreans supplied the reactor that the Israelis destroyed in the Syrian desert. You know, President Bush was derided for that comment, but he's absolutely right. There are linkages among this axis of evil, and clearly North Korea has become more dangerous.